grew up in Puerto Rico, sort of grade school, high school. Then I had the fortune of coming to the States to go to college.
Okay, so your formative years were in Puerto Rico.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and so baseball's a big deal in Puerto Rico, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's the heart and soul. A fan since I can remember, going to games at the local winter league, and then playing since sandlot baseball since I was like maybe 7, 8 years old, all the way through high school. Yeah.
And so, I mean, go to school, baseball was a big part of your life, I'm guessing.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was I was fortunate enough in school, baseball was one of the 3, team sports that the school had, and there was a league. And so we played the equivalent of junior varsity as well as varsity baseball.
And were you out of the closet back then, or was that something that just...
Well, did I know that I was gay? Yes. Out of the closet? No.
And knowing that you were gay, how did that impact you in terms of your participation in team sports? Did it have any effect?
No, I don't think so. I don't want to say that there were 2 separate things. I love sports in general, baseball being one of them. And I just love playing the sport, enjoying myself, going out with the guys, the kids, and playing the sport. My sexual life, sexual preferences were something completely separate and different. So I never considered them to cross paths.
Where did you go to school?
Philadelphia.
What did you study?
Engineering, computer science.
And so you worked in engineering?
Yes, I was at the time working as the quasi Beltway bandit. I was a consultant to, at the time, the federal government.
Were you involved in any athletics along the way? Were you on any teams?
Oh, absolutely. There was company-sponsored leagues. The company also participated back in those days, as you may or may not remember. There was a TV series called The Battle of the Network Stars. There was an equivalent corporate function, and it was referred to as the Battle of the sort of corporate stars. And so our company sponsored a team for charity purposes, and actually participated in that for the better part of 8 years. Come out to closest friends about that time. I was 22, 23 years old. Really to the broader general public, it wasn't until maybe in my 40s. It wasn't a matter of my family knowing that I was gay versus not gay. A lot of the times what kept me, I'll say, more in the closet was work-related and the work experience, as opposed to what my family would say or not say.
Did that impact you in terms of wanting to get ahead professionally and kind of keeping your private life private?
Very much so, yes. That it was that sort of big gap that existed in that time frame where, being gay was talked about, but was not necessarily publicly consumed, especially because that was the 80s. There was the AIDS crisis that was going on, and unfortunately we became pariahs to many people in the world during that period of time.
Did you know people who...
Unfortunately, yes, who passed, yeah.
And how did that impact you as a person?
Well, at first, when I'll say the first 1 or 2 friends or acquaintances passed, it sort of didn't register the impact. But as more people became sick, more people passed, then it became very blatant and apparent. And it changed behaviors socially. Obviously, I think everybody knows, people, not necessarily people return back to the closet, but I'll say maybe the wilder side of the gay life took a back seat. But then the cause, fortunately being in DC, that's when the quilt started getting built and constructed and put together. So I was fortunate that I was able to participate in at least 2 of the annual ceremonies while I was still there.
And how did that influence you and your friends who were living in Washington?
Well, it sort of caused many of us to look to leave, and to, especially because in the set of friends that I was hanging out with, many of us were employed in some way, directly or indirectly, through the federal government. And so it just became one of those, do I really want to be contributing or working towards the well-being? No, we chose to seek employment or move elsewhere. As I said, it was through the Gay Volleyball League that I was able to participate and get to know still a relatively small group of openly gay athletes, because I don't know that I could count more than maybe 40 or 50 people that would play, but at least it was a small community. Unfortunately, I've been a bit of a roamer in my life. After a stop in Mexico for 9 years and then in Dallas for another 3, that's when I came to Fort Lauderdale. And a little after that, that's when I joined the league first and played with, I'll say, the origins or the early days teams of the Blues. Roughly around 2014, as the Masters division was starting to take place, and as an effort to try to create it, formalize it here in Fort Lauderdale, I was asked to help put together a team. And so I put together one team. There was 4 teams altogether. We played it off. We got 2 bids and then went on to the World Series. I arrived in Fort Lauderdale about 2000. So yeah. This was 2005 when I first started to play. The Masters team was in 2015. I got introduced to the league through a friend, someone who lived in Washington back when I had lived in DC, and he remembered that I enjoyed sports, and he essentially said, "Hey, you should consider coming out and playing softball." And I went, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, there's a league." He got me connected with, at the time, one of the leaders of the league, Abe Hasman. At the time, he may have been assistant commissioner or commissioner. He held many different roles, but he also happened to be the manager of the Blues team that I joined. And it's through Abe's encouragement and bringing me in, I joined the team, played, and I don't want to say the rest is history, but yes, things went from there. First and foremost, what I always saw the league was as a different venue to meet gay or LGBTQ participants that was not a bar, that was not necessarily exclusively a social scene in the sense of let's have drinks, let's try to hook up, that type of a scenario, but one more of camaraderie and friendship and people out to share a good time, particularly through sports. In that very first team, there was at least 2 other Latin players that were playing with us at the time. Over the years, we've had more people come and more people go to that team and to the league in general. I've never considered it the difference of Latinos versus Anglos playing the sport. It's people that were all sort of on the field trying to have a good time together. The comfortness or the additional ease of having a larger Latino community is that in many instances, call it the jokes, the sidebar comments could be done in Spanish, okay, to, amongst us, not necessarily trying to, point or make fun of non-Spanish speaking people, but really just jokes about, oh, remember back home, or this particular custom that we may have had in Latin America, and that maybe to somebody who's more Anglo, they wouldn't have the context, they wouldn't know the reference.
So when you started, you co-founded the Legends division that was for over 50. That was in 2015.
Correct.
And why was that important to do back then? Well, was there something missing for older men?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know about missing, but it gave a bigger opportunity. As you can imagine, as we get older, our skills, our abilities sort of deteriorate as the age grows in. And it becomes harder and harder to compete, with a 22-year-old who's young and nimble and quick versus when you're hitting 50 plus. It's not quite all the same. You may know the techniques, you may know the strategies of the game, you may have learned it formally versus someone who's athletic who picked it up by watching. But it's still a difference in competition. More than a couple of people that did not want to join the over 50 because I don't want to say they were fighting the age, but they were like, I don't want to be considered an old person. I'm still young, I can still run, I can still throw. Only to find that whether it was 2 or 5 years later, guess who's standing next to you?
So tell me about the Gay World Series of 2017.
In Portland, yes. Fantastic experience. We had fortunate some success in the Masters division and with the Code Blue team. And so we had put together pretty much, I would say, of the 14, 15 players that we had on the team, at least 12 of us had played from the very day one together. So it was kind of a core set of folks. We knew each other, we knew our strengths or weaknesses, and we still managed to get along. So, but it was a great experience having to go all the way out to Portland. Not, as a sidebar, but the interesting times there was that Portland and that part of the Pacific Northwest was undergoing quite a bit of forest fires. And so the climate was a bit rough in terms of smokiness and playing with the smoke in the back, as a backdrop to the whole competition. But beyond that, it was a great experience. By then, the Masters division had grown to 18 teams nationwide that were present. From the first year in 2015, there was 14 of us. Nowadays, I think if you look between the two divisions, there has to be easily upwards of 30 teams playing. I got elected to the Hall of Fame, I think it was 2021. Yes.
Do you still play?
Not anymore. I'm considering making a comeback, okay? But I took a brief time off about 1.5 years ago because I got to that point where my abilities to play had really diminished. I was focused primarily on coaching, which was perfectly fine, but then coaching and putting together a team, especially if you're focused on going to the World Series, is a lot of work and occupies a lot of time. So I took a break. But yeah, I think I may be coming back come this spring.
So just kind of wrap up and tell us why this has been important to you and the difference that it's made in your life.
It's a huge difference because it went from being a better social outlet to the foundations of an extended family. Many of the players and people are just family. And it gives me somebody else to have.
Can you say that in Spanish for us?
La experiencia de jugar en la liga ha sido fundamental. Ha sido una experiencia muy movida que pasó de ser un ambiente donde personas de las mismas características LGBTQ, podemos compartir y pasarla bien jugando un deporte, a ser la fuente y el fundamento de lo que es una familia. Porque muchos de los jugadores con quien he tenido el gusto de poder jugar, los considero familia.
Santurce es la bella tierra, rodeada por los mares, dorada del sol de oriente y dormida por sus palmares. Hoy sus hijos están de fiesta, gozando al son de sus sones a esa tierra tan querida, que es la dueña de